Welcome to Andy and Ari on 3. It is one of the happiest days of the year. The first Thursday of the NCAA basketball tournament. It's 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. The games are tipping off in about 2.5 hours. It's going to be spectacular. We're going to have some fun today. We had the hardcore preview with James Fletcher III on yesterday's show because we figured if you're listening to podcast form, if you didn't get to it to your afternoon commute, you might not be able to get a preview that dropped right now before the games actually start. So we gave you the hardcore to make sure you got that before the game started. Now we're going to have some fun mixing up our favorite subject, college football, with the subject that will dominate this weekend, college basketball and football and basketball in general, because the crossover, pun intended, is pretty spectacular. And Ari, you talked to the perfect person for this kind of crossover when you were at OT7 this weekend.
Yeah, one of the sons of one of the Phoenix Suns, 7 seconds or less, like the Steve Nash, Sean Murray, and Rajah Bell teams, is 5-star quarterback Dia Bell, Rajah Bell's son. He is committed to Texas. He plays at Fort Lauderdale American Heritage, which has had a lot of good players over the years, and is the 5-star quarterback who is set to step in after Arch Manning. So
no pressure.
Athletic kid. At the OT7s, looked really good, played well. Got to be a special type of person to willingly walk into that situation. But I also think, too, that it's just a testament of like what Texas is doing as a build, getting these types of guys in, having a plan for after Arch, all those things. And, of course, we talked about his dad. I think they called them Son and Gun, Fun and Gun. I don't know. That's an offense and football, but the 7 seconds or less thing.
Yeah, Mike D'Antoni's teams would just get up and down the floor. It was a track meet. It was awesome. But I do wonder, Rajah Bell, having been in that environment, he was a big star in his own right, but he played with some even bigger stars like Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire. And so probably has a lot of really good advice for his son as he handles this process. And now Rajah Bell, it's interesting, was not as big of a recruit as Dia Bell is in football. Rajah Bell in basketball went to Boston University first, and he transferred to Florida International, and then went to the NBA from there. Was not, being recruited by all the blue chips like his son Dia is. But this is a fun one. And, watching some of these clips of Dia Bell working out, that dude is ready to roll. He is, he's throwing medicine balls like 20 yards as part of his workout.
Yeah, and I do think that there's a correlation between where you come from and who your parents are to how likely it is that you are successful at your sport. And I know that Rajah played in the NBA, but from a seriousness standpoint, a workout standpoint, a buy-in standpoint, all the things that you need from an intangibles situation to be very good, I think that he possesses. So I think that Texas is getting a really good player and somebody who certainly knows firsthand what it probably takes to be a pro athlete.
Well, let us hear from Dia Bell with you at OT7.
And now joining Andy and Ari on 3 is Dia Bell, 5-star quarterback out of Fort Lauderdale, but you're really out of Phoenix, right?
Yeah, I was born in Phoenix.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys know this. I'm assuming that you do, but his father was a childhood idol of mine, Phoenix son, Rajah Bell. I grew up in Phoenix. You're born in Phoenix. So what do you think is nicer, Florida or Scottsdale?
Weather-wise, I'd say I like Scottsdale a little bit more in Arizona than Florida, because Florida's a little unpredictable. But
yeah, that's the right answer, by the way. Yeah, Scottsdale's the place. That's one day we're moving back there. So what's it like playing in these tournaments and these events and getting to showcase your talents?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great opportunity, other than actually playing and getting a feel when you're in the off season, just to meet new people. I mean, a lot of people come to these tournaments from all over the country. I mean, it's a great recruiting opportunity for me being committed. So, I mean, there's a bunch of things that go into it, but it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, so the thing that I think is really interesting is that your dad obviously was very good at basketball. I'm assuming that you get this a lot. How did you find football, and what's it been like, being in a household with somebody who reached the highest level athletically, just in a different sport?
I mean, I grew up playing football and basketball. I mean, I've tried everything because my mom played soccer too, so I played all of it. I really found my love for football when COVID came around. We couldn't get in basketball gyms anymore, couldn't be in condensed spaces, and I told my dad, I was like, this is something I really want to do, and he was fully supportive of it. I mean, he probably felt some type of way a little bit, but fully supportive, has always helped me through this entire process. Obviously, like you said, with him being playing at the highest level, he's always helped me through all the recruiting process and everything from NIL to just knowing what coaches are best for me.
Yeah, and it's like an interesting thing because, sports are sports, right?
Yeah.
And your dad was a professional athlete at the highest level. Whether or not it's the same exact game, I'm assuming that he helped you understand the business side of things, right? Like what you need to do in your own personal time, the effort that it takes to go into it, the pressure of performing on the what's it like just having a consummate professional guiding you?
I mean, I've always looked up to him because I have no older siblings. I'm the oldest, so my idol was always him. I watched how hard he worked to get to where he is today, and I've heard all the stories. So I try to emulate that with me because I might have a better opportunity than he did when he was younger, but I still like to act like I'm in that situation, so I never lose my hunger for what I'm doing.
So you've been committed to Texas, and that's a pretty big-time place. Was the color scheme of the Suns an influence on the color scheme of where you were going?
No. That's funny. No, it's not. My thing with Texas was, I mean, they obviously have a great offense, it's pro style, definitely NFL ready, and they also have a great track record with Coach Sark and Coach Midway at quarterbacks. So I felt like if I could play for them, I'd get the best development needed to get to the next level that I want to be at, but also just the relationship I built with both of those coaches and the entire coaching staff was a big deal.
Texas is fascinating for a lot of reasons. One, they're on the ascension as a program, right?
Yeah.
Like they're kind of every year, knocking on the door of winning a national championship, and they also have the most hyped prospect in the history of recruiting going into his first year starting this year.
Yeah.
Like, what's it like to, as a person and a future steward of that program, watch its development, watch what they're going through now, and even how they've handled Arch and what's ahead for him, I should say. Sorry.
It's been great. I mean, obviously, like you said, I've been able to watch Arch grow in that offense with me coming up and visiting and watching them practice, and they coach really hard. That's what they do, and they get the best out of you. And Arch has grown a lot, and their entire team has grown a lot with the coaching staff. And like you said, we're always knocking on the door now, and hopefully this year is the year we come on top.
The handling of Arch, I think, is interesting because he hasn't even really played yet he's this super famous guy, huge NIL deals, all the stuff.
Yeah.
Like, how do you think Texas has done, like, from a professionalism standpoint of just, like, helping him along in a pretty uncomfortable and probably tough situation?
Yeah, I feel like they've done a great job. I mean, obviously, like you saw, like, they didn't play him much, and I feel like that was loyalty towards Quinn they had before, and they're going to be loyal to him as he's a starter as well. So that's always a big thing. They've been great with developing quarterbacks that don't usually hit the portal, so he's not going to have a problem with that at all. So they're really dedicated to the person they have that's leading this team and leading that room of quarterbacks. So they've done a great job with it.
I'm assuming that you have thought a lot about, like, what it's going to be like for you in the future when you're in his position that he's in now, going into the next phase of things, and when it becomes your program.
Yeah.
Let's assume that Arch Manning is awesome. He goes on to win the Heisman as the #1 overall pick. Have you, like, put yourself in a position of, like, that's going to be the expectations that I have to fill, as if the expectations at Texas aren't already high enough?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really even think of it like that. I mean, now you say that, my plan was always to come in, whether or not he stayed an extra year or not, was to come in and compete to the best of my ability and learn as much as I possibly could, to be prepared to play whether I do or not. I want to be where I need to be if I am starting or if I'm not, and just ready to play.
Can you tell this podcast world what it's just like to be a 5-star quarterback in today's age? I mean, like, forget, like, where you're going, where you're visiting, where you visited, all that stuff, but, like, what's it just been like on a daily basis for you to go through this process with the NIL stuff, with the visiting, the pressure? It's a business now. You have a dad who's played in the NBA. You're very fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot that goes into it. I mean, my dad has definitely helped out a lot in that space because he's able to give me all the advice that I need to keep my head level. And, at the end of the day, when you're a 5-star quarterback, you got a lot of people that look up to you, so you got to uphold yourself to a different standard. And as long as I know that as long as I take care of what's to do on the field, everything outside of that will come.
Yeah. Was it hard still? going through this? You know, I know it's probably a little bit easier now that you've made your decision, but is it hard when you have money being thrown at you and you have big-time programs wanting you? I mean, they're all really great. Ohio State, Alabama, Texas. You know, you can't really go wrong when you start. But like, how do you even parse through that?
You know, I mean, you try and take as much visits as you possibly can to get a feel for who you feel most comfortable with and who you think can get the best out of you. And, I mean, at the end of the day, like you said, it's really hard now that they have money that they can throw at you. You got to choose whether or not you want to take as much money as you can now, or if you want to go somewhere where you'll still get a good amount of money and get the development that you need to get to where you ultimately want to be, which is the NFL. So there's a lot to
How much do you think during your recruitment, you know, being a teenager still and going through this process, did you have to think about money?
Honestly, my dad and my agent took a big part in that, so I didn't really have to worry about it as much. A shout out to them. But so I could just focus on mainly playing football and being a teenager, like you said. And
like when I was a teenager, all I cared about was going to a place that I wanted to go to school with my friends.
Really, yeah.
You know what I mean? And I assume that, like, even though you guys are high-profile athletes who are being interviewed, you know, that like you also, there's an element to you like, I want to go where I want to go, where I want to have fun, where I can be me. And like I feel like that used to be 80% of it, and now it might be 30% of it.
Yeah,
and maybe coming from a family that's already gone through this helps. But I've always wondered, like, how can you just be a kid when you have to make a business decision?
Unfortunately, at this point for us, it's been that we had to grow up a little bit and mature a little bit earlier. I mean, but that's the world we live in now, and we got to adapt. But I mean, for me, I was still able to pick a place where I know a bunch of people and I'm friends with a lot of people, like KJ Lacey. I'm great friends with. Jamie French is from the same state as me. We know each other very well. And then all those guys in 25 class, I've met them on my visits and stuff like that. So I'm real close with them. So I'm still able to pick a school that I know a lot of people and feel really comfortable at.
You know what I think is interesting? In college football for so many years, it was taboo to talk about money.
Yeah.
It was taboo. It was against the rules.
Yeah.
And I think that as a society, we've been brainwashed into thinking that if a kid wants money, that he's a bad kid or that he's not good at football. All the things that go into that sort of thing. But now it's okay, as it should be. But people are still afraid to talk about it openly. Why do you think that is? And do you think that it's just going to take time, or like what? Why can't a kid like yourself be like, you know what, they offered me the best compensation package, and this is why I like them for X, Y, and Z? Why is everybody so afraid to openly discuss it, you think?
I mean, everybody has their own situations. For me, luckily, I grew up well off. I didn't have to worry too much about money. But for kids that are just trying to get their families out of tough situations that they've grown up in, I mean, money's a big thing in their recruitment. So I think people are a little bit scared because you might not be picking the school that will ultimately get you where you want to go, and they're just thinking short term.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, everybody comes from a different situation, and they have to pick what's best for them.
But why is it so bad to talk about it?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, that's just I guess, like I said, for us having to adapt to be more mature at this age, I guess more people are going to have to adapt to that as well.
Yeah. So you said that your dad at the beginning of this pod told you some stories that you helped learn from. Do you have any off the top of your head you can share with us?
I mean, I know a bunch. I mean, as when he was young, he was born in St. Croix, moved to Miami. And with basketball, when he was growing up, it was always he had a chip on his shoulder. He was always trying to pick out the best people in the area, or best people that were going to be in the area, and that was his kind of kill list, to say so. He wants to go out and dominate those guys and show why he should be who he is, and that's the same thing for me. When I get out here, or if I get in a real game, or if I go to a camp and there's top quarterbacks like me, I want to go out there and show why I'm actually the number one quarterback.
Okay, so everybody thinks that Texas is Arch Manning's program. He's next in line. Why don't you give your Longhorn Nation a little bit of a preview of what's to come? Or you're the guy, right?
Yeah.
It's not Arch, you're the guy.
Yeah. Soon,
maybe both.
It will be my time eventually, but you just know that I'm coming to put the work in. I'm coming to uphold the standard and win us national championships. So that's what y'all can expect from me.
I really appreciate you, Dia. Thank you so much for joining me, man. Thanks.
That is Dia Bell with Ari. Ari, I'm so glad you got that camera fixed up in time to do those interviews at 027. Those were awesome. Between Ryder Lyons the other day, which, by the way, the Ryder Lyons interview produced a question for today's Dear Andy and Dear Ari. And then we had Dia Bell today. It was awesome. Very glad that you did not give up, because you almost gave up when that camera broke, and I'm
I
proud of
almost
you.
resigned from the company, to be honest.
Hey, after the 7 phone calls and multiple FaceTimes, I'm very proud of you, Ari.
Thank you.
I was in the middle of Auburn, Tennessee SEC tournament on Saturday, eyes glued to that, and my phone was just Ari calling.
I didn't even know that was happening. I apologize, but you're the only. I wasn't going to call Andy and waterboard him while he was on vacation. I think he was even traveling. But
No,
I was driving the family down to spring break, so it would have been fun because everybody would have gotten to hear you freak out on the phone while we were in the car.
The thing that you have when we go on trips, when you're the camera guy, is this big red box, and I don't really know what that is. That's intimidating. But I have a very good handle. Yeah, I don't know what's the purpose.
We don't even use the mixer most of the time. We only use the mixer when we have to, because the camera handle has the XLR ports. So, yeah, I'm going to teach you what everything is and how everything works.
But
don't worry.
But my point is that I think that now, and I bought a camera bag on Amazon. I think I have a pretty firm understanding of how to do this now. So that's a good thing. So it took me shattering a $500 piece that you could only buy with the camera, or I have to replace that myself. I'm not going to build a company for that, obviously. If it's half the price,
less dedicated.
I think there's other people who would try to expense that, especially our past employer.
Yeah, I don't know that anybody we work with currently would try to expense it, but I can think of a lot of people who would have tried to expense it at.
But I'm trying to get
Sports
the replacement
when I worked there.
So what I did was I bought the camera from a electronics store because you could only get the piece that you needed to plug the microphones in if you bought the camera. So I paid $2,500 for the camera so I could get through Saturday. But I returned that camera with that piece this morning after I used it one time. Now I need to find that replacement part, and I found them on eBay. The one that you sent me on Amazon was $500. I found ones on eBay that are $199, but they come from China. So I don't know if they're cheaper because they come from the technological apex of the world, or if they're cheaper because they're pieces of crap. So I need your advice on that. But either way, I've got to replace that piece.
Genuine Sony part, please.
Okay, yeah. So it says genuine in the description, but I don't know what that means. So
it could be. I haven't checked. It might have been made in China anyway. So I will check on my camera after we get done. But right now we got to talk a little football, basketball crossover. Got some great questions from you guys. But first, I'm going to tell you how to bring home the W. The ultimate tailgate package is how you bring home the W, and that is from Whataburger. It's the burger box. It is perfect for every occasion. It comes with 10 single or double burgers, with or without cheese, and then you pick the sauces and all the fixings, which you can customize. So I'm hoping you get some spicy ketchup with that. I would recommend grilled jalapenos. That is, if I am when I have been in a Whataburger in the past, possibly at 2:30 in the morning, the grilled jalapenos have called to me. They will call to you as well. But you can keep it basic or you can go wild. It will be a slam dunk either way. Order online between April 4th and 7th on the Whataburger app to get double reward points. Also, don't forget, you could do the Whata Wings party pack from Whataburger. Invite some friends over, cheer your team to victory. 72 boneless tender bites, a family fry box, and your choice of sauce. Honey, barbecue, sweet, spicy, buffalo, you name it. And remember, order online April 4th through the 7th and get double reward points. So bring home the W with Whataburger.
You know what no one ever talks about with Whataburger that needs to be said because it's not part of the reads?
Go for it.
It is infallibly open 24 hours a day.
I'm not going to guarantee that because I don't know about all of the non-Texas Whataburgers. If they
all I know is if you want a cheeseburger at 7 a.m., Whataburger's got you. And I don't know who these people are who are at Love Field. Whataburger is actually under construction. I think they're rebuilding it so it's nicer. The facade, I mean. And I would go to the airport and get a Whataburger meal at 7:30 in the morning, and people would be like, "Oh, why would you? Who are these people who are anti-burger at 7 a.m., Andy?"
Oh, no,
I want to know what that is.
I don't think we should ever I don't discriminate against any good food at any time of day. I was the kid who would eat fried chicken and green beans for breakfast, and people would be like, "That's a dinner." I don't care. Or I eat a waffle for dinner. That's a breakfast. No, it's delicious food and it's good at any time. And I'll tell you, there was a moment I was struggling. I had covered a Texas A&M game. I was driving from College Station to Houston. I had a very early flight. The next morning was going to be one of those where there's a hotel room that my stuff is in. I'm going to walk into the hotel room, zip up my bag, and go to the airport. And it was rough. Like I was fading fast, and Whataburger and those grilled jalapenos, just woke me right up. Boom, easy drive to Houston. And I was like, thank you, Whataburger, for being there for me in the middle of the night.
And the toast, if you want to make dinner, breakfast more appropriate. Just something to put out there. Okay, let's get into the questions, Andy. Come on.
I like it. We got a lot of good questions. First one comes from Jay, who watched Monday's show and heard us talking about what Ryder Lyons said. Now, Ryder Lyons, the quarterback recruit who's being pursued by a lot of people, and he said, look, the reason we don't talk about NIL is because if I say something, everybody's going to be all over my butt on social media saying, you're just out for the money, you're greedy, blah, blah, blah. So Jay heard that segment and asked this question. In response to your comment, why are people obsessed with not talking about NIL? Well, as soon as we all admit that NIL is all that matters, we go back to only the richest schools matter. There'll be no hope for my small school to ever get a great player because we can't afford them. Also, I just think it's not true. Sure, everyone's getting a bag, but we've seen so many examples of teams that throw bags at players and it doesn't pay off. Doomsday are here, but will this house settlement just take us back to college football in 2010? Okay, so there's a couple pieces to that, and this works for basketball as well as football. The teams you're going to see in the NCAA tournament, and actually probably even bigger disparity between, say, the NIL that the Duke players get versus the NIL that the players on the 15, 16 seed teams get, but also the ones at the good mid-majors who are going to be 10 seeds in this tournament. Like, here's the thing. It has always been the case where the richest schools get the best players or have the best chance to get the best players. It does not matter how you set up the rules. It does not matter what you legalize or what you make illegal. The schools that care the most and thus are willing to pay the most are going to get the best players, regardless of how the rules are set up. That does not mean they will always win with those players, though. And I think that's the point that Jay makes in the second part of his question is you can throw bags at people. Ari, the 2022 Texas A&M recruiting class in football, best example of that I can think of. That's the number one class in America. What did it do for them? Nothing.
Will you read the last question, the part of the question again for the audience so they can revisualize it?
I think it's just not true. Sure, everyone is getting a bag, but we've seen so many examples of teams that throw the bag at players and it doesn't pay off.
Then the last
and
part.
Then Doomsday are here. Will the house settlement just take us back to college football in 2010? I have an answer for that too, I think.
But if you're a small school, do you want to go back to college football in 2010?
Well, he's saying he doesn't. But what I'm saying is his small school doesn't have a chance at the best players now and didn't have a chance at the best players before. Yeah.
Those are conflicting ideologies. The first part of the question says that it doesn't matter or that NIL has rendered his small school hopeless. But then at the same time, he said he doesn't want to go back 15 years. So which one is it?
Well, that's part of the problem is people can't seem to separate any of these things. They don't understand that it's what I was just saying. It doesn't matter how you set up the rules. Alabama and Ohio State are always going to be competing for the best players because they care the most and we're willing to spend the most money. However, they spend it, whether they're spending it on locker room waterfalls or directly on players, they're going to find a way to get the money where it needs to go to make sure they're the most competitive because they care more than everybody else. So your small school, which doesn't care as much, is going to be where it always was. Now, if you hire the right coach and you manage your money well, I still think you've got a better shot in this environment than you do in the 2010 one. And the house settlement, we can talk about that. So for those who don't know, House versus NCAA is the court case that is being settled where the settlement is going to set up the revenue sharing plan where the schools can pay the players directly. Now, the schools are going to try to cap that right now at $20.5 million a year per school. They're also trying to create a third party that's run by Deloitte, which is an accounting firm, that's going to look at all outside NIL deals. So NIL deals that are not part of the revenue share, so not coming directly from the school. And what they're going to attempt to do is police these deals and say, well, you can't have a booster give this guy this extra NIL deal because it's not market value. I am here to tell you that is going to get sued into oblivion. It will never work. They think it will. Common sense will tell you that it won't, because all they're trying to do is recreate the NCAA, and it's not going to work.
If Shannon Terry wanted to pay me $5 million a year, that's his prerogative.
Correct. You're not worth it, but he'd pay, if he wants to pay it.
My wife thinks I'm worth it.
Absolutely. But no, you make the perfect point. Whatever somebody wants to spend on somebody is their business, and the people who would be doing the paying in this situation. Because here's the thing. The schools and the players have to opt into this settlement. So they do have to abide by the terms of it, but these other people don't. And so if I'm a person who wants to give a player $10 million because I want to give the player $10 million because I feel like him doing a commercial for my tractor factory is going to just make it take off to the moon, which we know it won't. But if I think it will, it's my prerogative to do that, and it's nobody else's business if I do that. And so if you say I can't do that, I'm going to sue and say that you are infringing upon my rights, and you're also infringing upon the players' rights to make that money. And guess what? I'm going to win. So until they collectively bargain this stuff, they're not going to be able to rein that in.
And also, too, the point of the discussion in the column that I wrote wasn't to say that it's the only thing that matters. It's to say that we should talk about it as a factor. And the funniest thing about that is, and it kind of echoes your point, Andy, of the smallest schools aren't competing for the players no matter what the rules are. It's like, if you look at the school lists for these 5-star players that I asked the question to, including Ryder Lyons, I don't know who the question author roots for, but his small school's not in their final list. So like, it still doesn't mean that they can't discuss and talk about NIL and who's creating and giving the best packages as we break down who they're actually going to go to. So whether we talk about it or not doesn't change your existence on the food chain. You can ignore it and pretend like it doesn't matter so that you feel better, but that's not the way it works. And also, too, if a middle tier school really wants a kid, they might be able to throw a bunch of money. They might not be able to get anybody else, right? Isn't that what everyone's making fun of the Cincinnati Bengals for right now? They paid 3 max spots to players and now can't afford to fill out the rest of their team. Like that, some NFL operations are doing that now. So, like, I like Andy said, you are in a much more advantageous position now than you were in 2010. And lastly, now that you're showing that picture of BYU on the screen, River, I do have a theory that if BYU,
by the way, which has the #1 basketball recruit in the country coming in next year because they threw a hellacious bag at him. Probably the wrong word to use for BYU. But
how much is the Mormon Church worth? Okay, $265 billion is the estimate. What is the #1 way to promote something in America?
Sports.
If BYU in the Mormon Church decided they wanted to throw $1.5 million at 85 people, it wouldn't even be a drop in the bucket in comparison to what that organization, that religion is worth. And then also, too, I'm assuming there's crazy tax benefits to that. They don't pay tax as a religion. Like, if they really wanted to, couldn't BYU become Alabama? Like, I tried to call somebody at the Mormon Church a few years ago when they ran the 60 Minutes thing. I don't know if I've told you this.
I remember in the financial. Tell the audience this. Tell the audience this.
Yeah, because like Chris Kamrani at The Athletic and I are obsessed with this, and we talked about it all the time. But like, so here's the thing. There was a 60 Minutes episode, and I might have called it the worst time, that was insinuating that the Mormon Church had more money than people thought, even more than the estimations, and had it in ways that maybe they don't want to talk about. Okay, whatever. Your opinion on the Mormon Church and how they got their money is your own opinion. But they haven't. They have a bunch of land. They have a bunch of shopping centers. They have a bunch of investments. They are worth billions and billions of dollars. So I called somebody made a few calls to try to get in touch with somebody who has any say whatsoever on like how the Mormon Church spends its money, just to get an idea of like, hey, would you guys ever be interested in maybe, doing NIL? Anyway, it led to a lot of hangups and we're not interested, which is probably what would always happen if you tried to do it. But also at the same time, like 60 Minutes ran like the week before. So I'm sure that they were probably a little bit squirrely about talking about money with a person who isn't in the church. But I still have a crazy conspiracy theory, and maybe they're doing it with basketball first because you have to pay less players, and they have an amazing class coming in. But if they ever decided they wanted to throw $1.5 million at everybody, and they got the best player at every position, could BYU not run the Big 12? If you actually want to talk about that, like we had a conversation, the three of us, once about. We had a conversation, the three of us, last week about what teams are kind of like Maryland and who did I write about last week? Oh, Texas Tech. They have an oil baron who is sponsoring their NIL front, and Texas Tech got the best transfer class in America and might be able to hold on to recruits now in a way that they weren't in the past. Could Texas Tech ever run the Big 12? If BYU's church or the Mormon Church decided we're going to create and assemble the greatest collection of talent this university has ever had, they would run through that conference. They would run through it.
Can I give you a basketball example of this with BYU? So AJ Jabonsa is the #1 basketball recruit class of 2025. He's coming in for next year. He's potentially the #1 pick in the NBA draft in 2026. Who did he pick BYU over? Alabama?
I can't imagine. Yeah.
North Carolina? And Kansas. So yes, if you want the player bad enough, you can outspend everybody.
Now, just so I understand this, the church isn't taxed, but if you make money from a church, you're taxed as it as income, right?
Yes.
There's no.
Now, here's
benefit.
The thing: the money's not coming from the church, Ari. The money's coming from private donations. Now, remember, there's some highly motivated members of the Mormon Church who want to promote the church's mission through BYU.
But isn't BYU's entire university run through the church's funds?
Correct. But they don't have to do this.
I mean, it's all however you want to phrase it, but it is all.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
and he's also got deal. Remember, the thing about being the potential #1 pick in the NBA draft is there are many, many companies willing to throw money at you. So he also has deals with Nike and Red Bull. So
yeah,
but the point of it is you talk about, well, if it's like this, it's the small school is never going to be able to get anybody over the blue bloods. Well, 2 blue bloods in an SEC school wanted this guy, and BYU got him. So what is reality telling you? Reality is telling you that if you want the player, you can go get the player.
And just for perspective, Nike's market cap as of right now, as we record this, is $108.57 billion. That means that the Mormon Church estimated to be at least 3 times more valuable than Nike.
Pretty good.
Then I know that there's got a lot of things they're spending their money on and stuff, but like the Mormon Church, like BYU could be the most flush university with cash in the entire country.
Kalani Sataki's like, Ari, you are speaking my language. Let's go. Let's make this happen.
Now you have to. So here's the thing. It's a podcast. We're all friends. We got to be honest about it. There's a code of conduct at BYU that's really hard to adhere to for most college students. You can't have sex. You can't drink soda. There's no drinking. Like there's a lifestyle sacrifice that you have to make in order to go there. Okay. But listen, I've had a 5-year ongoing debate with my friends about whether or not if somebody gave me $1 billion, if I could eat turkey sandwiches for every meal for the rest of my life. And I feel like food is a small sacrifice.
You would turn into Nick Saban, where he ate the same salad every day for lunch. Like it works for a lot of people.
Do you think you could eat turkey sandwiches for every meal for the rest of your life if the reward for that was $1 billion?
Yes. And I say
too.
that, and you know how much I love food, and I say that, and I would do it happily.
So like,
Done.
I think that like if you're listen, if you're playing basketball at BYU and you're going to be a one and done player, you're only refraining from those things for 4 months. It's not, for the amount of money you're getting. And then also maybe it'll help you focus on basketball. But it is it is a culturally different place. So there are some people that may be, reluctant to go all in on that with those limitations. But at the same time, too, if the offer is big enough, you could do those things. So, and I don't know how like the code of conduct expands, like if you're home for the summer and stuff. Like, do you still have to adhere to the BYU code of conduct?
You're supposed to. And if it gets back to them, you could.
But you can't get kicked out of school from BYU if you like drink soda or whatever, or do whatever.
Ari, I don't think the soda is in there anymore. I think that they might have loosened up on some things. You have to go back and read the code of conduct, but it is still very strict compared to most other schools.
What's the Utah Salt Lake City soda chain that's really big?
Black Rifle Coffee Company?
No,
there's a very famous coffee
Swig.
company there. So,
it's called Swig. It's like this huge store, and
it's
all it is caffeine-free sodas. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the caffeine. It's not the soda. So
yeah, and also too, like, have you ever had caffeine-free Coke? Tastes the same. Tastes the same to me.
Well, you can get it when you go to Utah. A lot of the restaurants have a caffeine-free Coke option at the fountain,
which is electric.
Putting that out there.
And I feel like if you have caffeine, caffeine-free. Is there caffeine in my Dr. Pepper Zero here?
Yes, there's caffeine in your Dr. Pepper Zero.
Okay.
All right. Next question comes from Nick. Which NCAA tournament team would be the best college football team? Which college football team could field the best college basketball team? I'm going to go. So we talked a little bit the other day about one of my favorite pastimes during the NCAA tournament is finding the guys who play for the mid-major schools who really should be playing football, and we don't know why they're not playing football. But I'm going to go with a more generic answer just because there's a coach in college basketball who I feel like would be the best recruiter of football players. And so I think the things he values and the things his team values, his program values, I think would make very good football players as well. I'm going to say Michigan State and Tom Izzo. Tom Izzo would recruit football players really well. Like he's all about toughness, selflessness, and also athleticism, being a dog. Like all of the stuff that Tom Izzo values is very valuable on the football field. Steve Mariucci, former NFL head coach, is one of his best friends. Izzo and Saban got along great when they were both coaching together at Michigan State. Like I think that Tom Izzo, you take his team and put them on the football field. Now, obviously, you're going to have to find some linemen because most of his players are not built to be linemen. But he'd be great at recruiting those tweener guys, like the hybrid edge linebacker guy or the hybrid safety linebacker guy. I just think his players, like you put them on a football field, they would automatically be like, imagine Mateen Cleaves as your quarterback, Ari.
Yeah. I mean, Tom Izzo is like the consummate college coach, right?
Yeah.
Did I use that word right?
I think absolutely. You mean just in general, college coach, football, basketball, softball, you name it. Yeah, I agree.
College athletics coach. Yep.
And I would trust him to recruit a football team. Now, which college football team would make the best basketball team? I'm trying to think who has the just absolute biggest set of freaks in college football.
Yeah,
it's like, Ohio State or Georgia, right?
Smith play basketball. I would love to see Jeremiah Smith.
It's Ohio State or Georgia. It has to be because they have the freakiest athletes. So I'm just going to find the 5 freakiest athletes and put them on the floor and be like, figure it out.
Yeah. Jeremiah Smith is the player that jumps into my head. But as a homage to the question, I think that we should go through some of the best 2-sport athletes of all time. And I think number 1 is probably Julius Peppers, who played basketball 100%. At North Carolina. And then you had Antonio Gates, played basketball at Eastern Michigan and Kent State from the MAC. Then you had Jimmy Graham, the former New Orleans Saints tight end, played basketball at Miami. Donovan McNabb played a few games and scored at the NCAA tournament for Jim Boeheim at Syracuse. And then, of course, Terrell Owens at Tennessee Chattanooga. Those are guys.
Oh, let's not forget Tony Gonzalez. Tony Gonzalez, one of the greatest tight ends in NFL history, played on a Cal team with Jason Kidd that beat Duke in the NCAA tournament.
That's right. So, but Jeremiah Smith was the one that popped into my head because I think Jeremiah Smith might be the biggest alien in the sport. But there's probably also some really
that's the thing. I mean,
edge rushers that could be really good power forwards in there too,
if we took either the whole Ohio State roster or the whole Georgia roster and just went, because there are guys that probably don't even play on those teams that are such freak athletes that if you saw them in the gym playing rec basketball, like you'd be like, how in the world is this guy not in the NBA? Like that, I guarantee you Ohio State and Georgia have that up and down their football roster. So those are the ones that I'm taking a basketball team off of.
You know, the legend has it that Chris Gamble, the former two-way star from Ohio State's 02 national title team, was a hell of a basketball player. Like, he would go to the rec and play in games with the current Ohio State basketball team, apparently, and just like smoke people. So that doesn't surprise me. But like Travis Hunter too would be. He's not in college anymore, but I would love to see him, play 4 quarters or 2 halves, I should say, in the NCAA tournament as well.
He could do it. He's the champion of stamina, as we know. Next question from Craig. Dig deep and give me your 2025 college football, John Tonje. So he's the completely unheralded transfer who turns into an All-American. He plays basketball for Wisconsin, and we're going to be watching Wisconsin here in the NCAA tournament very shortly. Now, I think with these guys, where the basketball guys seem to come out of nowhere, Dalton Connect Tennessee was this guy last year, where absolute superstar came from a school that nobody had ever heard of. Like that is going to happen more often in basketball. I think it's probably easier for us to do this in football because even though the average fan might not understand, like John Tonje played for Colorado State. So he was playing at a high level school. Colorado State is also in the NCAA tournament this year, by the way. But I think for us in football, this is easier because Ari, you and I cover the coaches and the recruiting people and the personnel people. So we have an idea of who at the lower levels they really want, they really like. Yeah. So I've got some answers for you that I feel like pretty easily off the top of my head. And there's a few other ones that we might be able to get into. But Cole Wisniewski is one. If you've not heard of him, he played at North Dakota State. He was injured most of last year, but was a FCS All-American at North Dakota State. He is going to Texas Tech. That class we talked to Joey McGuire about, that's the top-ranked transfer portal class in America. This is a guy who they think is going to be one of the centerpieces of their defense. You heard Joe McGuire on our show last week say his secondary was not good last year. This is one of the guys they think is going to make it a lot better. So Cole Wisniewski's a name you need to know. You ready for another one? Another safety with a crazy name. Zechariah Poyser. Zechariah Poyser is a safety from Jacksonville State. He's long, he's rangy, he's from Wildwood, Florida. This is a guy that everybody wanted when he hit the transfer portal. He's at Miami. So another team that needed to improve on defense. This guy is going to help them improve on defense. So, and you ready for another one, Ari?
Yeah.
McQueese Grace. McQueese Grace is an edge rusher, 255 pounds, transferring from South Dakota to Kentucky. Now, he took a visit to Georgia when he was in the portal, ended up picking the Wildcats. The reason I picked him is because he's from Cincinnati originally, and Ari, you and I have talked a million times about Mark Stoops, Vince Marrow, that Kentucky staff, how well they recruit Ohio, and obviously Cincinnati, just a hop, skip, and a jump from Lexington, easy drive. These guys probably said, okay, this guy's an FCS All-American at South Dakota. Let's check with our contacts back in Cincinnati. Is he the real deal? Is he legit? And they went all in on him in the transfer portal. So my guess is they know this guy's going to be good.
Yeah. So like how deep into the rabbit hole did you go with this? Because there's like certain guys that pop off into my head that aren't like huge. Like, I mean, like, do people know who Isaiah World is? Like, does that count?
I don't see. I thought about him because I don't know that they do, but I think if you followed the transfer portal recruiting at all, like Isaiah World was one of the celebrities of that sphere. So Isaiah World is the most appropriately named offensive tackle who ever lived. Sure. He was at Nevada last year. He's massive. He's like 6'7", 330. He's going to be Oregon's starting left tackle this year, and they went and that's who they're replacing Josh Connerly with. But Isaiah World is one, when he went in the portal, every blue chip school offered him. So it's hard. Like, he is probably
an NFL draft prospect already. So I don't know, like, he's unknown to the fans, but he's also an impact player. So like that's
very known in the world of college football.
Did you like go down all the way to the list of guys who were just not rated out of high school? Who played at smaller,
I didn't. I didn't feel like I needed to do that because I could give you 3 or 4 names that you even like. Our audience is very hardcore college football fans, but I'm willing to bet that 75 to 80% of the audience had never heard of any of those people I just mentioned.
Yeah. And like also too, like even guys who played at big time programs, like Rocco Spindler to Nebraska. Like that's another one. Do people know who Rocco Spindler is? Recruitniks do, because he was a top 100 player when he was a recruit.
Notre Dame fans do, because he started for Notre Dame last year.
Yeah, and then had to go because there's not enough spaces there. But like I feel like he could be a really important piece. Like what about Keyshawn Silver? He's a former 5-star defensive end from North Carolina who didn't really find footing there, who's going to USC. Like could that be somebody
he went to Kentucky first. He was playing alongside Deion Walker at Kentucky last year.
That's right. So you know, I don't know, like guys who were recruits who kind of fell off into the abyss, but also too, Tanner Koziol is somebody I had as a preseason All-American at tight end. The Ball State transfer to Wisconsin. I think he's the leading tight end yardage returner for this coming year. And I got some mixed emotions about him being on that list over some guys, but you know, anybody who's coming from the MAC to Wisconsin to play Wisconsin football is a pretty exciting. I mean, you can go down this list and you can find guys who are, you know, and another one who we've talked about on the show multiple times, but like, do people know who Will Helt is? This guy's going to be awesome.
He's a monster.
He is
Purdue transfer who went to Clemson. He's an edge rusher. He was excellent at Purdue last year. So remember, Nick Scorton leaves Purdue last year to go home to Texas A&M. Nick Scorton was from Bryan, Texas. He goes home to play for Texas A&M for his last year in college. Will Helt, who had been at Purdue a year with Nick Scorton, goes into his second year and just tears it up. And he is a monster. And he's going to be on Clemson's defensive line. He's going to be playing alongside Peter Woods. That's going to be fun.
2 more from that are going into IU, and I just like don't know. Did people watch Cal play? But Fernando Mendoza's a quarterback who I think is going to be really good. And then of course Pat Coogan, our guy who was on the show from Notre Dame, the 4 quarters of fuck you football guy. They're both going to Indiana. So just things to pacify you a little bit. But there will be guys like this that emerge in a big way at college football next year.
Oh yeah. No, this is going to be very interesting, and there will be people, like John Tonje, who maybe the average Big Ten fan had not heard of him before this year, but everybody in the Big Ten knows him now. I think a lot of those guys we mentioned are going to be at least household names within their conferences, if not throughout the whole country.
Yeah, I guarantee you that people like the random casual fan does not know who Will Helt is yet, and everyone will know who he is by the middle of the season. Yeah.
And look, it's funny because we had to have on people like, he didn't really use the transfer portal that much. I'm like, yeah, but if
this one's gonna be a big one,
it's going to be pretty big. So
yeah, especially joining that defensive line too. Like even if he's not as good as people think he is, just joining Peter Woods and the other animals on that line, he'll be in pretty good shape to get some pressure this year.
I cannot wait to see it. Now, from one transfer portal conversation to another, I think. Because I think we're going to talk about a team that has been very active in the transfer portal. At least I am. I don't know who you're going to answer this question with. This comes from Big Booty _TD. Which team is the most likely candidate for a serious step back this season in the SEC? Ari, I'm going with Ole Miss here just because that was probably the best roster Ole Miss has ever had last year as a program. And even though they're our number 2 transfer portal class this year, they lost a lot of talent last year. There's a lot of Ole Miss dudes at the combine.
Well, Ole Miss is the layup answer because of how much they lost and how much they invested into their roster for last season. I've got 2 that are going to make people mad. I mean, half the SEC can't go backward after what happened this year. But let me ask you this one, and I'm going to duck. Okay. Is it possible, if Keelan Russell isn't the savior, and that they have a quarterback issue, that Alabama goes 8-4 this year?
It's only one more loss than last year. It's
major step back.
It would be 8-4. It would be a cataclysm at Alabama if they go 8-4, because they're just so used to being great under Nick Saban.
Just go with me on this. Auburn is much better.
Okay.
Oklahoma is much better. LSU is much better. South Carolina is just as good as they were last year. Tennessee is very good. Mizzou gets their act together. Georgia, Wisconsin, Florida State is much better. Now, going 8-4 against this schedule would be rough. It's kind of hard to find 4 losses if Alabama is who we think they are.
Right.
Like, are we sure
we don't know about the quarterback.
Be better?
We don't know about the quarterback situation yet, but we do know Alabama is going to be good everywhere else. So it is hard for me to predict that. Even if the quarterback situation does not work out.
I don't want this to turn into Ari thinks Alabama is going to go 8-4, but they are in a position where they have to be outstanding to improve from last year. And if they are the same as they were a year ago, but the ball bounces in the opposite direction in one more game, you go.
The South Carolina game is a good example of that. Yeah.
I'm just saying it's not out of the question that Alabama falls into a team. Because, like, when you look at regression, it's like, I guess everybody will be like, South Carolina got lucky last year. They're going to suck this year. It's like, okay. I think Lenore Sellers is only on the upswing. Florida doesn't have very much to drop. Auburn doesn't have much to drop. Arkansas, Kentucky, Mizzou, Mississippi State. Like, there's not a lot of options here. So when I'm looking at, like, teams that could take a real step back, like Alabama losing 9. What if they go 9-3 again? Like, is that a step back? Because that's multiple years. Alabama doesn't play by the same grading rubric.
Right. Well, here's another one that doesn't is Georgia. We don't know who's going to start at quarterback at Georgia. We assume that because they recruit so well, they're going to just be right back in it. But will they?
Yeah, and I think maybe Georgia would probably have been even a better answer than the Alabama one, just from the sake of, like, if Georgia goes 9-3.
Yeah,
that's a step back.
We don't know if Gunnar Stockton is the guy yet, but they've also got Ryan Puglisi there, who you know how I feel about that, where Ryan Puglisi did not care that Dylan Raiola was committed to them. Like, I love the guys that feel like it doesn't matter who else shows up. I'm coming anyway. I'm a fan of that. Gunnar Stockton, clearly beloved by his teammates. So I think they're going to be all right, but I don't know. Now, on the flip side of what I said about
take for the show, you want me to go viral? I'll go viral.
Oh boy, here we go.
One of Alabama or Georgia will miss the playoff next year.
I mean, one of them missed the playoff this year. I don't think that's that hot of a take.
One of them will reach the regression thing that we're talking about this year. They're both not going to be great.
Okay. That is not, you're right. People will get mad about that. I don't think it's that hot of a take.
I don't either.
Because I think it's hard. We've talked a bunch on this show over the last few months about how hard it is and how not just hard, impossible it will be to recruit in the way that Alabama did under Nick Saban or the way that Georgia had been doing under Kirby Smart. It's just not possible in this era to stack talent in that way. So it wouldn't shock me at all if one of those two teams did regress. But I think you're right. I think it would be a shock to most people who are not paying as close attention, who are probably going to be like, well, no, Alabama and Georgia are always good. What do you mean one of them is not going to be really good? They're not. So it's going to be fascinating to watch because I think you're right. And we always assume that when somebody's riding as high as they were, that you feel like that's going to last forever, but it just doesn't. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Now, I will go the flip side of the Ole Miss one because you and I were at the Georgia game last year, and we saw that drive that Austin Simmons got thrown in for.
Yep.
It just may be that Austin Simmons is that dude, and Ole Miss doesn't drop a bit. Like,
yeah,
it's not
the quarterback
possible.
with them. The quarterback scares me at Bama and Georgia. The quarterback doesn't scare me at Ole Miss. It's everybody else they lost.
Yeah, what I worry about with Ole Miss is regressing back to 2 years ago where Lane Kiffin said, we just weren't good enough on the line of scrimmage when we played Georgia. And that is, you don't want to go back to that because they clearly fixed those issues last year.
Losing Walter Nolan and Trey Harris is pretty brutal.
He lost,
and that's not even scratching
talent.
The surface of just those are just the two that stick out to me. But
like Chris Paul, I don't think people understand how good Chris Paul was for them last year, and he's going to be a good NFL player too. they lost a lot of talent, and it's hard to replace that, especially if you're not at a place like Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, where they have just brought in, top 5 class after top 5 class. So now look, we've ranked on 3 has ranked Ole Miss's class number 2 among all the transfer portal classes. So it may be that Lane Kiffin just reloaded again, but we shall see. We shall see. Producer River pointed out there is a lot weighing on Nico Iamaleava's shoulders at Tennessee this year too.
Oh yeah,
this is a 10-2 team that made the playoff. They lost some really good defensive linemen. Now they were super deep on the defensive line. I'm still not that worried about Tennessee on the D line. Offensive line, we'll see, because they are replacing some really good players there. But that's
the
one there's a lot of pressure.
To have about Tennessee is whether or not last year was their ceiling.
I don't think it was, but I think they're going to have to get more out of Nico than they got out of him last year.
Well, they don't have receivers that are proven yet. Now,
no,
it's a 5-star.
Mikey Matthews and Chris Brazzell.
Mikey Matthews has got. I mean, I think you could even make the case that he has more on his shoulders than Nico, right, River?
Yeah. Well, Boo Carter also don't discount him as a two-way player, because I wrote this in my spring practice intel column last week. It sounds like Boo Carter is going to get legit snaps on offense, like not Travis Hunter type playing the full game on offense and the full game on defense, but they feel like he can actually help them as a slot receiver. And I think you're going to see him a little bit on offense.
I call my wife Boo.
Yeah, he hits harder than she does. Maybe slightly.
Huh. She's not a powerhouse. Not a very big person, but when she's mad, it's pretty uncomfortable for everyone.
She is a powerhouse when she is angry. That is true. All right, one more question. This comes from Jackson. Do y'all say soda, Coke, or pop? One right answer, but I'm curious to hear it from y'all. Now, the way Jackson wrote his question, I already know what his right answer is. I already know. And it's the answer I'm going to give. If you have a bubbly carbonated beverage, it's Coke. It could be a Dr. Pepper. It could be an orange. It could be a 7-Up. It's still a Coke. I'm going to go get a Coke. We're going to get a couple of Cokes.
Is that what you say?
That's what I grew up saying. Now, my dad called them Coca-Colers, but yeah,
that's electric.
We said Coke, and I think
so. If you're going to get a Mountain Dew, you saying I'm going to go get a Coke? That's insane. It's just to talk about the category. You're talking about the category.
If you say you're getting a Coke, but you're not actually getting a Coke, that requires another question to be asked, right?
Yeah.
River, you're from East Tennessee. Why are you questioning me on this? Like, your people do this too.
But I've always called it soda.
Here's the thing that you're not understanding about this question is there are certain products out there that have been named what the brand is. Like if you're getting a Band-Aid, nobody needs a follow-up question. A Band-Aid is a brand.
Right. Which actually for the Band-Aid company is annoying, because they don't want other people's bandages to be called Band-Aids. They want you to think of only them.
But they're
Band-Aid.
not. They're called bandages. Yeah. But Band-Aid, my daughter thinks a Band-Aid is every Band-Aid. Everybody calls, no one says, what kind of Band-Aid are you getting?
And most people think that. And did you know that dumpster is actually a proper noun? Dumpster is a company name.
Okay.
Same thing.
Exactly. So here's the thing about that. Like Coke does not get that for soda. It's just not. There's follow-up.
It does if you grew up in South Carolina or Georgia or Alabama. It does. Now, if you're from somewhere else, you may say soda, or if you're from the Midwest, you may say pop. But
if you say pop, you're from Wisconsin, and that's it. Like I've never heard anybody say pop before outside of the Fargo.
Plenty of people in Illinois, like Chicago, they'll go get some Paps.
No, it's the answer is soda, and I guess there are pockets of areas of the country where they do it wrong, but like the majority of the country says soda.
Do it wrong. I guarantee you, Jackson, his right answer, because the way he wrote this question, I guarantee you his right answer is Coke. Now he threw up a hook'em, so I'm guessing he's from Texas, which I didn't realize that was a Texas thing. I thought that was more of a Deep South thing, but. Well, I'm going to have to follow up with Jackson on Twitter and see where he's actually from. And get the whole lineage there because I'm fascinated by this. But no, like when I was growing up, you'd be like, we're going to get a couple Cokes, and you're talking about 2 carbonated beverages with sugar in them that don't necessarily have to be Coca-Cola.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I don't want, like, River said it best. If your communication requires more questions, you're communicating ineffectively.
We don't listen. You don't need further communication. You should just it's telepathic. And River, I'm shocked. Get up here, River.
I've never.
You're from deepest East Tennessee. Like they don't do that there.
I never did. I was just always like, "What do you want?" "Oh, I want a Dr. Pepper." Or what kind of soda do you want?
Do your people do the Southerner thing of adding an apostrophe S to everything? Like we're not going to Panera Bread, we're going to Panera's.
Yeah, I mean they got a restaurant called Pals with an apostrophe S with it. So yeah.
But do they say they're going to the Kroger? Are they going to the Kroger's?
They're going.
Do they ever go to the Kroger's?
They're going to the Kroger. They're going to the Walmart. Yeah.
The thing that
I had a friend that called it the Walmarts.
Yeah.
The thing that you need to go back to with soda is that Mountain Dew, which is probably the best soda out. I mean, there's 3 sodas out there: Coke, Mountain Dew, and Dr. Pepper. Those are the 3. But Mountain Dew throws a wrench in.
We're just throwing Pepsi to the wind here. I love it.
Yeah, I am. You want to check stock prices?
No,
I like
I'm
Pepsi, but it's not on the pantheon of greatest sodas.
Unless Pepsi wants to advertise, then I'm a Pepsi guy all the way.
Yeah, that's like what Dave Chappelle said. You know, if Coke's paying me more, then I'm sponsoring Coke, and if Pepsi's paying me more, I'm sponsoring Pepsi. Truth is, can't even taste the difference. I mean, Pepsi's good. It's just not, it's not in the top 3.
It's all Coke to me. Ari, go to Vegas. Cannot wait to see you, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, Friday morning, 6:30 Las Vegas time. We're going to break down all the games, all the action. Hopefully there's some buzzer beaters. Hopefully there's a bunch of upsets. Of course there will be.
What time is it on Vegas time again?
That'd be 6:30 a.m. You're going to be there, and you're going to love it. Enjoy the games, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow morning.